Alright guys, the next thing we need to tackle, just some random cleanup stuff, like these gnarly exhaust hangers. Look at that nasty thing. Pry this off of here. Alright. Damn. That thing must be 40 years old. Look at that. But it was not about to break. See, there's a piece of, I don't know if you can see it, but there's, yeah, you can see, barely see, there's metal in there. That thing was on there good. We're just going to stick some of these round donut design ones on here. Ah, much better. Alright. This one, looks like they replaced that one. That's one of the brand new kinds. That one's absolutely fine. Oh yeah, they replaced the two in the rear. And yeah, that one's pretty gnarly right there. So let's get this one out of here. There we go. Nice. Transmission mount. That one, yep, that one has seen better days. So that is coming out right now. There's the right one. Just keep the transmission supported. You want to put a board here so it doesn't dent the transmission pan. There we go. We'll just stick that there. Much better. So we'll go ahead and put this one in there. That side in. Let's get this side in. We'll run those down in there. And then we'll bolt up the sides. There we go. Put it on there. After. Before, this thing was pretty gnarly. Much nicer. And the flex disc, there's no cracking. It's in outstanding condition. Yeah, that thing is great. No need to change the flex disc. It's only got 56,000 miles on it. So, all right, good. You got that changed. Next thing we're going to tackle is the motor mounts. No telling how old those are. The engine was not, oh, we're also going to put some new engine shocks in here. See, there's an engine shock here and an engine shock here. And then there's the shock mount on top and the bushings on bottom. Same with the other one. It's not vibrating excessively. It's pretty normal, but while we're doing all this, we might as well replace all the wear items on the car, which is what I'm doing. So we'll get started on that next. Alright guys, today on the 300 CD we're changing motor mounts and engine shocks. And if you look way down there, there's a little Allen bolt and there's one on each side of the motor mount. So we're going to undo those, and then underneath the car there's a big Allen bolt that bolts in through the frame. So we're going to get those out, and then we'll disconnect the throttle linkage right there so we can raise the engine just a little bit. You basically have about 2-3 inches you can raise it before the fan makes contact with the shroud. So we'll do that and get the mounts out. All right, I've gone ahead and loosened the bolt on the driver's side and passenger side. Now I'm just going to go down there with a magnet and get that bolt out of there. Hopefully you guys can see that. There's the bolt right there. There we go. So there's the one from the driver's side. This side is much easier. Now we're going to need to lift the car and get in there with a manual old school Allen wrench to get the inner ones out. So I'll go ahead and get the car up right now. First I'll disconnect this linkage so we can do that. Okay, I just disconnected the cotter pin and pulled the linkage out, and I'm just going to set it aside there so it doesn't bind when we're lifting everything up. So you can see it right there. See, there's a bolt on that side, and there you go. You can barely see. We can barely see in there. Let's see if I can get a better view here. So there's a bolt right there, and you can barely see the other bolt right there. I'm going to go ahead and take those out from above. So let's go ahead and get that guy out. You definitely don't want to strip these little guys. There we go. And again, we're going to go down there with a magnet. Just got to get it totally loose, and then we can get in there with a magnet. It's still not all the way out. Come on, there we go. It's actually in the wrench. Okay, cool. Got that one out. All right, here is the view from the passenger side. You can see, you can barely see the bolt. It's right there. And the trick to getting that one out is using one of these like swivel sockets. So you just get down there. Let's see if I can do this one-handed here. Put it on top of the bolt, and there we go. Then you can turn it out using that swivel socket. The car, and you can see there is a bolt right through the cross member, the engine cross member of the subframe. There's a bolt right there, and that goes into the engine mount. So let's go ahead and get this guy out. And you want to be careful to make sure your Allen wrench is mounted in there very good, because you don't want to strip this. There we go. So that's in there. And there we go. We got that side out. And let's go ahead and do the other side. You see, here we are at the other side. Let's see. There's the bolt right there. Here we go. We got the driver's side out. I need to undo the bolts on the bottom of the engine shocks. So I'll go ahead and take those out, and then we can actually raise it up. In order to get the bottom bolt off the engine shock, you have to hold the shaft still, or otherwise it just spins. So you can clamp some vice grips onto the shaft right up in there, and then you can get that off. On the passenger side, there's not enough room to get locks up there on the shaft, so you can stick a screwdriver in here and then just pry against the shaft, and that's enough tension to keep it from spinning to get the little nut off. And then you can pull the bottom guys off here. And this one is ready. Come on, get out of there. This one is ready to, you can now lift this out of the vehicle. So if you just keep an eye on that shock, you'll see that when I start to lift the engine, there you go. The shock is now detached. So the engine is actually lifting up now, and we're relieving pressure from the engine mount so we can get in and see all the bolts. But if we lift up the engine off the mount, it gives us the access we need. Take those guys off of there, I'm not using them anymore. Okay, now you can see this plate is loose, so we're going to take the plate off there. Show you what we're working with from the top of the engine. See how that mount is now lifted, or the engine mount, the arm that comes off the engine is no longer attached to the engine mount right there. So then we can undo that engine mount and slide it out of there. Okay, the passenger side here is pretty easy. You get an Allen. Let's see if I can get a better shot for you guys. There we go. I've got an Allen key right there, and you can unscrew the bolt that's holding that engine mount in the car, and then we can take the mount out because we lifted the engine up off of the mount. That feels like it's out. There we go. So that mount is out of the car. And let's check the condition. Okay, it's squatted down a little bit, compressed a little bit. They're not horrible condition. They're not ripped. But let me get a new mount. We'll show you the difference. So there's a new mount, and here's the old mount. See how that one's kind of squished down and compressed? And that's kind of when you want to start to think about changing them. Now this will compress a little bit when you put the engine on it, but it won't be like that. I've gone ahead and put the new mount on the passenger side, and I went ahead and I put this bolt back in. See, it's not tight, but it's just enough to hold it there, and I'm going to then go put the one on the other side, and then I'll tighten them both down. And the trick is, you want everything to be aligned. You see, it's not right now. You want everything to be aligned when you put it back together, and that is the tricky part. You got to get those threads lined up with this hole to put the bolt back in. Let's see what happens if we move it a little bit. What do we have? Okay, there we go. See how that's perfectly lined up? So that's how you want it when you put the bolt back in. Now for the driver's side. This one's a whole different story. We got to get this shock out. I need to do that from the top, get that cleared, and I think we might be able to get access to the bolt without removing the shock from the side right there. Let me see if I can go ahead and do that. So we have the engine shock removed from the driver's side, and we're going to replace it with OEM original Mercedes. Here's the replacement shock mount. That's the part here, obviously. And then here's the bushings, which, here's the original bushings from the car. They actually weren't in terrible condition. But the main thing we want to replace is the actual shock. Here's the actual shock that we're going to replace it with. And this is Stabilis. That was one of the original equipment manufacturers. Actually, that's the same kind that Mercedes had in there. Here we go. Made in Germany. This is the exact same part. Anyway, so we'll have a new shock, a new mount, and new bushings. I just wanted to show you on this car, some cars are different than others. I had to actually detach the radiator shroud so you can see it's loose there. So I could get it up a little bit higher, basically to the limits of the lower radiator hose. And then I could actually get a socket on the engine mount bolt right here and get it out. Some cars you don't have to do that. You can get an Allen wrench on there, but the Allen wrench just wasn't fitting due to interference with like oil cooler lines and that kind of stuff. So I actually had to put a socket on there. And to do that, you really got to raise the engine up high to get it to fit on there. So let's go ahead and get this last engine mount out. And we'll take a look at this one. There's the driver's side, and again, that's pretty squished down. It's not ripped. It was still working, but yeah, definitely squished in there in time to replace. Gotta get the right angle. There we go. Voila. There is the shock and the shock mount. So we're going to change all that now. Okay, I've assembled the new shock onto the new shock mount. Genuine Mercedes parts with a Stabilis shock. Same exact manufacturer as the original. And we get these old ones out of here, and we got the new bushings and new washers. So we'll go ahead and get this put back on the passenger side. Alright, I've cleaned up the engine mount covers. These go right above the engine mount, between the mounting arm and the engine mount, and it keeps diesel and other stuff from getting on there. And you have to have the engine lifted up. I'm not sure if I have it up there enough. Alright, I need to go up a little higher. There we go. Right up. There we go. And that's how that mounts. Now we'll go ahead and work on reattaching the bolts on both sides and getting the shock mount through there. Let's go ahead and put the passenger up there. I've already got the shock mounted here. Let's put the passenger plate, protective plate up there. There we go. There's a better shot. They just sit right up on there like that. Guys, we're on the home stretch. Got the shocks and mounts back in, and I just want to stress the importance of putting some anti-seize on the bolts before you go back up in there, because you never want these bolts to seize up. Let's see if we can just get this one started. It also helps them to go in there. There we go. And I start them by hand because you definitely don't want these to cross thread. There we go. That's going in there. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the camera out of the way so I can get my wrench on there. Alright. We're just going to slowly. Good, that's going in there smooth. Because these thread into the aluminum arms on the engine, the engine mounting arms. So you want to be careful about cross threading and using anti-seize. This one went in nice and smooth. Just going in there slow. And then we'll torque it to spec once it's in there. Alright, let's go over to the other side and get that one in. Alright, got some anti-seize on the bolt, and first we'll just go ahead and get it started by hand. There we go. There we go, that's going in there nicely. You never want to cross thread or strip, or you never want to mess these bolts up. Some bolts, you know, you can mess up and get away with it and just replace the bolt or replace the piece, but these, if you screw up, royal pain in the ass. You have to change your engine mounting arms, and that is not good. Alright, now I'll get those torqued to spec. So, the next thing we want to do, we have our new engine shocks. And if you look up there, you see the engine shock mount. And got the brand new engine shocks. Now the bushing right here is in place. but we got to put the bushing on the bottom and then screw the little 10mm nut onto it. Man, that was a tedious job, but we have brand new engine shocks, motor mounts, cleaned up the mount covers. You can see new motor mounts over here, and beautiful new engine shock over here. So now I'm going to go to the rear end and tackle the sway bar end links. That's always a weakness on these cars. And our box is getting empty. Looks like the only thing I have left is a filter. There's another filter. There's just an extra set of motor mounts I had for another car. And what do we got here? Oh, that's just a pre-fuel filter. And here's the sway bar end links. So that's it. Oh, and then there's the power steering fluid filter. And I'm also going to flush the transmission fluid. I got a gasket right over here, and change the oil. But let me show you these rear sway bar end links. So there's actually a small ball joint on these guys. Look, that's a bunch of that dust that's back here. Maybe I'll pressure wash that at the car wash. But anyway, there's actually a ball joint, see right there? And you can see it's ripped on this one, so that means dirt and stuff is getting in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these off, because when these fail, you'll get a clunking sound on your rear end. And these things, it's time for these guys to go. Let's look at the one over here. Yeah, see, the boot is ripped. I'll actually just pull it off. Yeah, it just came apart in my hand. They're actually surprisingly still stiff, but they're on their way out. So we're going to go ahead and get those out of here. As you can barely see the sway bar end link up here, and all it takes is a 17mm on the end of it. Let's get that on here. So there's that dirty old original sway bar end link. There's the replacement limb forder. There's the original. They're identical parts. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one put up in there. And they give you these little wavy washers. These are, I guess, tension lock washers you put on there. And they give you one for each end. So we'll go ahead and stick this one up here and get this side started. All right, then I'm going to go ahead around to the other side. Here's the other side, and you can see that bolt goes right into the backing plate, or basically it's the backing plate of the rear brakes. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that stuff back together, and then I'll start on the other side. Oh, also you have to remove the wheel to do this, so you can get a wrench on that right there. That's how you get that back one in. That's why I take off the wheel. You got to get a wrench in here. Now I'm going to drop a little bit of Loctite on there. There we go. Get that down into the threads. Now I'll get a little bit up here too on the top. There we go. And there you go, a beautiful new sway bar end link. So now we're going to go around and do the other side. There you go, very nice. Got the sway bar end link done on the passenger side. And also I was looking at the brake pads, and it has plenty of life left on the brake pads. And the rotors back here do not have a lip on the rotor. These rotors are in excellent condition. So it's pretty obvious that the previous owner changed the rotors too. Guys, right now what we are looking at is the transmission shifter linkage. And you'll notice there's no bushing right there. I forgot I ordered a set of bushings. That's a common wear item on these cars. You'll get a sloppy transmission shifter, and it's because the shifter linkage bushings, there you can see it right there, they deteriorate and there's no bushing there. You can see the clip is still on the end there, but there's no bushing, and that'll tighten up the shifter as soon as I replace those. So let me go ahead and get those. For the transmission shifter linkage bushings, all it is, it just clips into that little groove. And our buddy Kent over at Mercedes Source made this awesome tool that makes it really easy to press them in there. I know there's a lot of haters out there, but I think Mercedes Source and those guys did a lot for us in this industry when we were just getting started. And they made some great videos, and just about all of us out there have watched Kent's videos. Anyway, I ordered this from him, and it's really nice. Looks like he modified a set of pliers and welded on these tips, which let you press in that, looks like he welded on a bolt there and a little loop here, and it really works great. So I'm going to go ahead and get those shifter linkage bushings pressed in. Two shifter bushings, one up there that I was showing you earlier and one back here. And this is better to, you can see why it's a problem. See, the clip is still on there, but this just flops around in there. So we're going to pull this clip off and press in one of those bushings. There we go. See how easy that pressed in with this tool? And then we just need to put our shifter arm back in there. Sorry, I'm going to probably get in the way of the camera here. There we go. You can see we got it through there. And now I need to put the clip back on the end. Here we go. Got the clip back on off camera. And we have the new shifter linkage bushing in there, so that will not rattle around. It'll be a tight shifter. Now I'm going to go do the one up in the front. There is the new bushing on the front shifter. And to get that one on, you actually need to undo the bolt here, unscrew that, and then this lever pops off, and you can remove it from the car, and then you can press the bushing in. And then put it back in the car. So we have new shifter bushings, and now it's time for an oil change. Guys, we are done with all the restoration, and I am just gonna do an oil change now. Put some fresh fluids in this thing. Transmission, oil, power steering, diff, all that kind of stuff. And then we're taking it over to the alignment shop. Guys, I just finished up with the oil change, but I've also noticed some of these vacuum connectors were very brittle and showing some age. So I've gone through and I have some extra vacuum hose here, and I'm replacing those. Here's another one right here. That one is showing some age. So I'm going to go ahead and go through and just make sure all the vacuum unions or connectors are in good shape, and just replace what's needed. So I actually went through and replaced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little unions because, let's see if I can find a good one here where you can see it. Yeah, you see how it's just cracking and deteriorated, and I have some really high quality rubber vacuum line here. So I just replaced every connection here, this connection, these two connections, this connection, and actually these looks like the previous owner had these replaced because these all look new. Actually, there's one. Let's see. Yep, there's one I'm going to replace too. See the little bitty micro cracks in there? I want to go ahead and get rid of that one too. Okay, that's much better. So all that's taken care of now. I've checked all the Let's check these over here. Yeah, it looks like they might have replaced that one at some point. That one's in good condition, and so is that one. So those are good. Also, the previous owner, you know, fell for the old trick of that black injector return hose, and that shit is total crap. The only thing that works well is the Mercedes stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and change all these injector lines. Alright, last thing we're doing here is replacing the master cylinder rubber grommets. Here's the replacement, and you can see how these are see how that's all chewed up and expanded. Anyway, those need to be replaced. And what you do, you just disconnect the master cylinder and you pull it out of here, and I've already put the front grommet in there, and you just pop the back grommet in there. I'll set that there for a second. There's the master cylinder. I'm sorry, the master cylinder reservoir. I didn't mean to say the master cylinder. The grommets go into the master cylinder, and that'll prevent the reservoir from leaking. So we'll get those popped in and the reservoir put back. Okay, got the master cylinder reservoir back in, and you can see the fresh grommets we have in here. So that's good to go now. Refilled it with fresh brake fluid. Guys, this is the fuel sending unit. I'm just out in front of the shop letting all the diesel drain out of it. I'm actually just going to set it down right here for a second. But the diesel, or the fuel sending unit, comes out of the gas tank. It's right there underneath the first aid kit. And I'm going to put the back seats back in after I do this job. But you need to take that out, and then we're going to disassemble it and clean it. That keeps your fuel gauge from ever getting stuck. These are cleanable and rebuildable. So let's go ahead and let that drain, then we'll get it over here on the workbench. Alright, maybe that's a good angle for you guys. So to clean these guys, what you got to do, you need to make a special tool. That's just a regular screwdriver, and I just filed the a little notch in the tip there. And if you look at the bottom of the fuel sending unit, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there is, let's see if we can get this to focus. Well, anyway, there's a little screw or a little nut that has a notch in it. There we go. So that fits into the notch there. There we go. Okay. So that little nut comes off there. You might be able to see the notches in it now that I've blown it out. It's not going to focus. There we go. You can barely make out the little notches in there. Anyway, so you take that off. Then you take the bottom retaining plate off. Then you take the bottom plastic plate off. Slide down here a little bit. And then that exposes the float in the end. So then you can pull that float. This whole unit disassembles. There we go. Wow. This one incredibly clean. This is the first time I've pulled one of these apart and it be this clean. There's no residue or anything in here. somebody must have already done this on this car, or just with such low miles, it never had a chance to get dirty. Guys, actually this one doesn't need to be cleaned. But there's the float that moves up and down. It's the bobber. And normally this is all gunked up with just grime and goop from basically the sludge you get out of diesel. And you got to clean all this up or the float gets stuck. And this one's immaculate. It doesn't have it doesn't have anything to clean. So I'm just going to reassemble this and put it back in the car. The part you want to be careful with, see if you can see this on the video. There's 3 wires. You can barely make them out. See when I'm spinning, see the 3 wires? So the float moves on 2 of the wires, and then one of them sends a ohm reading back to the connector that tells you how much ohm resistance, that tells you how full the tank is. But those wires are super thin. So the trick is when cleaning these is not to break them. However, this one, like I said, perfect condition. No need to clean anything. It works like brand new. So I'm just going to put this back together and we're going to put it back in the car. Insert this back together. And there we go. Let me just find my notch. There it is. There we go. And that is reassembled. There's a little bit of grime on there. I'll clean that off. That's really it though. Nothing needed to be done here. Let's reassemble the end cap. I'll wipe that off. Then the little plate goes back on there. And then our little notched washer screws back on the end. Well, at least you guys got a chance to see it and see how clean it was. Because if you have a sticking fuel gauge or a not working fuel gauge, that's why. But at 56,000 miles, this one didn't have a speck of sludge or anything in it. Or maybe they just have super clean diesel out in Arizona. Anyway, let's get that tightened back on here. And this is going back in the car. You can hear it working perfect. Anyway, we're going to reassemble this back into the car. Alright, we have the fuel sender back in the car and plugged in. Now we're going to put back in the first aid kit. Alright, we're going to get that screwed in and get the first aid kit in, so let me go ahead and do that. Alright, we got the first aid box back in there with the infamous first aid kit. So let's shut that back and get out of the back of this coupe. Alright guys, I've started cleaning this undercarriage. I've got a steam cleaner here, and you can see I put down plastic, and I'm just steam cleaning all this dust off the undercarriage. Time and patience. Alright, let's get a rag and wipe off some of the water and degreaser. Oh wow, look at that. Here's the original paint under there. It looks nice. That steamer works really well. It just takes some elbow grease, literally. So let me go ahead and finish this up. All right, finished steam cleaning the trunk and exhaust, and looks great now. All right, I think I spent about 4 hours cleaning the undercarriage, and it came out really nice. Here you can see it got back down to the original paint. Still got some black road grime on there. Yeah, there's some right there. I got to the original paint. And over here, but it cleaned up really nice. That got back down to the original paint. Still a little road grime there. But that took a long time to get all that dust and dirt off of here. Alright guys, this is the final restoration video. Wow, I am actually done with this car. That took me months. Thursday, it's going to get some new tires. Got an appointment at the alignment shop at 10 a.m. and then we're going to do some walk around videos, some driving videos, and wow, this thing's actually done. So I really hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I really put a ton of work into this car. It's so rare that I went the extra mile, because a silver with black interior 85 coupe, I mean, that's a unicorn, you know. So I really wanted this car to be as perfect as I could get it, and I think I did a good job on it. Sure, it's an old car. I'm sure another issue is going to pop up somewhere, but that's part of the joy of owning these things, you know. You can work on them in your garage, and obviously that's what I'm doing, working on a few of them in the garage, and they're just amazing cars. So like I said, Thursday is the walk around video and the driving video, and then this car will be for sale. So thanks again guys. Please subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.